Okay, so as I said, I want everyone to think a little bit about what acclimation you want your paper to be in. Do you want it to be in the vertical or do you want it to be in the horizontal? I'm not going to tell you which way I'm going. I want you to go your own way and commit to your way and be thinking about what kind of vase you would like, because that's going to be the first thing. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an instruction. Depending on the way that you have put your canvas, right? You're going to want to draw a line in either direction, about an inch up from the bottom. So if you're going this way, I'd like you to draw a line here just to establish what the table is going to look like, just like we did with the orchid last week, right? So if you're going this way, just make a horizontal line this way. And if you're going with the with this acclimation, just make it about 1 inch from the bottom, a straight line. So I'm going to do that just on my mock-up here so you can see. So you can kind of see I just made a rough line here, and I'm doing it in a pencil over my black. So just so you know, my black is down here. And if you're going this direction, it would be the other way, right? So I'm going to just show this way. And then I'd like you to draw your vase in here. You want your vase to be a little under, maybe a little under halfway. So no matter what shape you're doing, whether you're going with a circle or a rectangle or a flatty or even like a funny little shape, just make sure that it's about half of, just a little under halfway. So I'm going to give you, for example, here. So if this were my painting, it might look like that, just a kind of like halfway. So I'm going to give everyone a moment and just do it with pencil over your black. And if you don't have a piece of paper painted black because you're not using acrylic tonight, totally fine. You can do something on paper that will look like this. So I've just got some pencil on my piece now, and I'm making that line across as I just told everybody to kind of try. After I get my pencil sketch down, the next thing I need to decide is what color vase I want. And for the purposes of this piece, I'm going to use a very light camel color. Next, I grab my camel color and I paint the shape of my vase. You don't have to get too detailed at this point, but eventually you will be able to add details. But right now I'm just trying to get a first layer down. It can be any color, it does not have to be this camel color. Next, I thought a little bit about what kind of marks I might want to be on my pot. You don't have to put anything on it, but I decided that I wanted to play around by scratching some little X's into my pot, into my vase. Now that I have my vase the way I want it, I want to think a little bit about how my bouquet is going to look. And so I want it to be nice and full. And when you get a plant from a florist, it generally comes with some greens. So we're going to spend a little bit of time creating the greens. I have many different color greens, and so I'm going to start with my darkest green, which is a hooker green. And I have many other greens that I'm going to use as well. But the first step is going to be to put down the darkest green. So I think that I'm gonna want some kind of like a leaf over here. That's gonna work. So it's gonna be very dark at first because we're going over the, over the black, but that's fine. And I'm also thinking that I might want something that like comes out over this way, this kind of a thing. And so I'm going to just use my brush. Now I have multiple different brushes. This brush is a round brush, and so I can make really nice leaves by just touching my round brush, letting my brush do the work. You can also do that with a long flatter one. So I'm not worried about this. None of this is going to really show. I also am going to make some greens, just some shapes of things. I'm just kind of playing around because I can always paint over this in black, remember, right? I can always kind of go over stuff if I don't like it. So I'm just warming up a little. I'm just putting some little shapes down here a little bit. I'm even going to put something over my vase a little bit because some leaves might overlap. So, and droop down a little bit. So maybe I have a green leaf coming down this way over my, and it's okay if it's wet, it's all good, no problems. That kind of a thing. And I might want some like grassy kinds of things coming up here. I don't know. I can always paint over these, but I'm just thinking about a nice full bouquet, just making some marks here. I'm just kind of just creating my halo of marks here. And because I went over that, I've got actually a secondary green color coming. So I'm just tracing over some things a little bit, spreading that secondary color around. And that'll be enough for that color for right now. So I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to let that sort of dry. Now we got to think about flower placement a little bit. This is how I build a bouquet. So I'm going to use a colored pencil here because what I'm going to do is my color palette is going to be orange, yellow, and like that fuchsia color, that pinky purple kind of color. So those are going to be my 3 colors. So I'm going to actually grab a pinky purple, an orange, and a yellow. And I'm just going to use these colors to kind of map out where I want my flowers a little bit. So I know that I want one large flower kind of right in the center here. So I'm just gonna kind of make I'm just taking a colored pencil and kind of making my orange mark here. And it's okay if it goes into the pot a little bit, it's no problem. So it's just my guidelines, it's like painting by numbers. And then I know I'm going to make a second, you know how I am about my numbers, right? I always like 3. So I know I'm going to make a second orange flower over here. So I'm just making some shapes right now, ovals and circles. And then maybe I want one kind of over here too. So there's 3 orange flowers. They're just marks. They're just marks right now. I'm kind of good with that. And then I'm going to think a little bit about where I might want my yellow flowers. So in and around there, I'm just going to make some circles. I'm going to have a lot of little teeny weeny flowers, little yellow flowers. So again, I'm just making some marks for myself. It doesn't matter where you put these. It doesn't matter. You can cover them up. I'm just trying to create for myself some kind of a plan. And mine's all circles right now. There's going to be lots and lots of different things happening here. So there's a circle. And then down here, I'm going to just grab a little pencil here. I definitely am going to want some droopy things happening. So I'm just going to make some droopy little vines, kind of like what we did with the orchids last week. I'm just going to make some little viney looking shapes so that things can kind of come off that away. And feel like I could probably put one here without a vine and maybe some kind of viney things coming off this way. I'm just playing. I'm just thinking composition. And then I got this purple thing, and my purple flowers are just going to be kind of like what we did last week. They're going to be teeny tiny little circles on either side. So I know already kind of like how this is going to fill up here. So I have something here that's resembling what I want it to be. And then there's going to be like some big tallies up here. Okay. Cool. Now we can, and even if you don't know exactly what you're doing here, just think of a bouquet. Just all you have to really do is just think about your favorite bouquet that you've ever received, and you know, we know that flowers, there's some height to them. There's gonna be lots of green and all that. So if you're working with acrylic paint, chances are that what you've just done is probably even already dry at this moment or close to dry. So I'm going to go in with my next color green. So my first color green was called hooker green. It's quite dark. Like I said, you could either use a regular green and add a little black. That's going to get you hooker green. Now I'm using this primary green, this light green color. And now what I'm going to do, just like we've always done with, oh my God, it just kind of shot out over here. So now what we're going to do, just like we've always done with watercolors, we're going to sort of divide our leaves in half, like we've always done. And I want you to think about, we're just for my purposes, we're going to make the dark side of the leaf the bottom side of the leaf and the brighter side of the leaf the top. So this is a lighter shade of green. So all I'm doing here is kind of in the middle of my leaf. I am running this lighter shade of green over the middle of my leaf. All of them. I'm doing over all of them. So I'm just kind of going over every little leaf here. I'm not trying to obliterate what was underneath it. I'm going over it. So I'm making a second value, just like if you were outside in nature, you would see, you know, there's darkness and light in different shades in all the leaves. So I'm just putting this one kind of in the center of every leaf. So you can see it's already a little bit brighter than that gloomy hooker green that I had going there. It's just a little pop in each leaf. Doesn't look like much, it's just lines, just lines. So I'm gonna let that be for a little bit. I'm gonna let that dry. And maybe as you do that, you're realizing, maybe you want something to just have that color, not have the darker stuff happening. So you can do that too. So that I just did right over the black, and I might just add a little bit more. Cool. And you know, this is already my mantra. It doesn't look like a person. It doesn't look like a car. It's gonna look like a plant. All right, next step is going to be the flowers. So I am not classically trained. I'm gonna show you how I do flowers. So this is layer one of the flowers. There will be more layers. I am, like I said, I'm gonna stick with the oranges and the yellows in this. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of my darker orange. This orange is called cadmium red light hue. I call it orange, but I have two different colors orange. So this is my darker orange. And all I am doing here is I'm literally making a swirl, like one of those swirly, something like this kind of a thing, like a swirl. I hope you can see that. It's just so I'm leaving some of the black is I guess what I'm saying here. I'm making a little swirly do. And I'm gonna do that on my other orange flowers that I'm trying to make orange as well. So I'm just making some areas orange and some areas are staying with the black. That's what we want. If you get a little too overzealous or whatever, you can always take the back of your brush and you can get right in there, right? And remove some paint like I'm doing right now. So you can always create your swirl that way. Totally fine. I like it. The beginnings of my flowers. Now I'm gonna go over to my first base of, actually I'm gonna add a little bit more of the green. So I'm gonna grab a light green and I have two options. I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna go with this light green. This is lime green, same thing. You could just take your regular green if you only have one green, just put a little bit of white into it. If you have some options, go with your lighter green. Now for this one, I'm gonna do something different. I have created these like taller kind of grassy things here, and I'm gonna put in some different kind of, just like we sort of did with the orchids last week. I'm dropping in some, I don't know what kind of flower this is. Maybe you gardeners there can tell me what kind of flower I'm doing here. But I'm literally just popping the brush down and making some shapes here. Maybe they're like gladioli or something. Isn't that a thing? Gladioli. Gladioli. And I'm gonna do that up over here too. So I'm just, it's kind of like I'm pushing little circles, but on something that's almost like an imaginary stem. And so it's fine if you want to draw the stem. And just like the orchids last week, I'm going on either side of that stem. And there's plenty of black showing through, just so you know, because this is the first pass. So there'll be second layers on all of this. So I like that. And then I'm going to put some of that brighter color on the top of my leaves. So I'm going over my leaves with a little bit of that same color. I didn't even empty my brush. I'm just going up on top of the leaves that I have already made and distributing this color a little bit as well. That's good. My next step, I'm going to add a little bit of bright green paint to what will eventually become my yellow flowers. So I have 3 or 4 different color yellows, but before I add the yellow, I'm going to just add a little bit of a green center. I'm just making little circles all over the place. It's all good. I'm going to put one of those little flowers over there, so that will fill that out. I know it doesn't look like anything yet. I know. But it kind of does. You can see where we're going here. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to get my center flowers going. So I'm going to use a little bit of yellow. And I'm going to kind of go right up and over where that green was. And I'm just trying to make some tiny, they're almost like, I don't know what you would call them. Maybe they're like marigold shapes, or, you know, I don't know. I'm following this sort of general picture here, but just trying to get a little yellow down. It's very similar to that green that I had, but not quite. And it's okay if your flowers overlap. Kind of want that. This is just our first pass. So like I said, you're going to see a lot of black through it if you're using a black canvas. It's going to need something up in there somewhere. Not yet. We're going to pay a little bit of attention to the tabletop. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of dark blue because I know I'm not planning to use any of that in the rest of my painting, and I'm going to use that on my tabletop. So I'm going to grab an ultramarine or even a primary blue will work, and I'm going to make a pass over the black that is currently on the table. And I am trying to make sure that that's pretty level, which it is. And I'm not worrying that I have some, you know, different colors at the bottom here because that's just fine. And now I just got to think a little bit about the shadows. So in my mind, this shadow, I'm going to have you can have the shadow go wherever you want, but because the way my paper, I have most of the artwork over here, I'm going to make the shadow going this way. In other words, coming from behind the plant so that the shadow would be cast over this way. So here's what I'm going to do for that. I'm going to take a teeny tiny little bit of white to mix with my blue, which you'll see in a second here. My white. Because everything is so dark, this will look really cool, I think. Yeah, this is going to look great. So I am going to make my shadow kind of come over this way. Now that I've made the table a little brighter, now I'm going to be able to add the shadow. So I'm going to grab my black. You could do it with Payne's gray if you prefer. So same thing, I'm using that same blue that I just used, and I'm mixing a tiny little black in with it, a tiny bit. And that is going to become my shadow over here. All I did there was I used one shade of blue. I put a lighter shade of blue over the whole entire thing. And then I went over with the same blue with a little bit of black in it. And it gave me this nice, this other shade of blue here that is becoming the shadow. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, I think I better take this off so that I get the whole thing painted. Otherwise I'll never match it again. Yeah, that's already not matched. Lordy. Is that my cool bump? Yes, that ultramarine gets real clumpy. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. Okay, I'm super happy with that. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, things have been drying. Things have been drying. So I'm going to go into my flowers a little bit more, and I'm going to grab my lighter shade of orange. But you can pick whatever colors you want. I'm going my lighter shade of orange here. And I'm going to grab probably a different brush just because it's dry, but still a roundish brush. And this is a different shade of orange. And I'm going to go over that first shade of orange with my lighter shade of orange. So I'm just layering here, layering a slightly different color. And again, if you don't have multiple color oranges, you can just, same thing, mix it with a teeny tiny bit of white and you'll get a nice contrast there. And I'm starting to think I might need like another flower up in here. So I'm going to put that in there. Maybe it's going to be a different one, different kind of flower. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Maybe even something. There'll be something kind of orangey over here too. I'm just going to drop a little bit of orange over here just because I feel like it needs some more orange. Just my eyes feeling like it needs something there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You guys know I don't like those even numbers. Okay, just dropping it in there. And it's okay to go over your base a little bit. Like you want that. We want that. You want that layering. Okay, I'm liking this. All right, let me think of my next thing. Now I want to put in some, I want to get in some, I'm just trying to think what I want to do next week with that color, with that brighter color. So I'm also going to put in some of this. Next week, I'll do a little pink over the top, I guess. So yeah, I'm gonna pop in a little bit of, let me see how this goes, if it's too wet, but I'm gonna put a little bit of this up, this like, what is that called? My cadmium yellow orange. I'm gonna put that into my orange. Yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna drop it right in there a little bit. So I'm mixing a little bit of a yellowy orange right in there, right over the top. So I'm just blending a little bit. Okay, that's cool. Next step, and you are going to go crazy about this. This is such a fun step. Okay, prepare yourself. I am going to, actually, we could do something really fun here if you want, and you don't have to, but this is actually very, very fun to do. Hang on, let me make sure I've got everything here that I want. So we want that. And we should probably put in some more flowers. Yeah, I guess I need to fill that a bit more. Okay, so before we do the next step, I'm gonna change things up a little bit. I need a pink. So I didn't even mention that I was gonna use a pink, but clearly I need one. So I've got a hot pink happening here. And all I'm gonna do is I've got a rounder brush now, and I'm going to pop in just some bits of hot pink in a couple of places. I'm filling in the places where there's a lot of black in the bouquet. So I'm just trying to make the bouquet a little bit more full, right? So I'm not going nuts with it, but I'm definitely adding a little bit of this pink color. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I like this color. That looks good. So I'm filling in a little bit, some of that color, some of that black. Yeah, I like that. Okay, next step is gonna be the purple. Purple and purple. So I have 2 colors of purple here. 2 colors. One is light blue violet and one is a brilliant purple. I'm gonna take a small brush here. This is a long, small brush. And give me a second here. This is coming out a little bit bluey, but it's gonna be fine. Okay, I'm going to now drop. So this is a little bit bluish, so I will be going over this a couple of other times, but I actually like it, this sort of bluey color. So I'm going to plop in it's got a little bluey, but it is what it is. Maybe that's fine. Maybe they're like those bluebells or whatever. So I'm just putting in some of this blue here. You can see it's a slightly longer brush that I'm using. It's like I'm just dropping the brush down and it's making those little marks kind of nicely for me. So I'm gonna put that over here, and then I'm going to create that in a couple of other places. And they don't have to always be attached. So I'm gonna do one, do I want one drooping down here maybe? Maybe these should be that. I'm gonna go over these with a little bit of the purple, see what happens. Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna go over this. So next pass, as you start to go over these, you should see that it's the black, if you're doing that, if you're going with me on that, the black is getting a little bit more covered, a little more coverage. Yeah, this is more purple now. And if your colors are wet and it's just too wet for you, just hold off on this. You can come back to it. For me, things are pretty dry here. Definitely that one a little bit bluier than I want. So I'm gonna go over it with my purple as well, but I gotta let that dry for a second. So it needs one more, I think. One more stem of that. Kind of up in here, maybe. So I'm just popping my little brush down, bloop, bloop. Maybe one up top. That looks pretty balanced. And I'm just putting it in some of the little spaces as well, just the places where I have some space. Ooh, that looks good. Okay, I gotta let that dry. A little bit. Okay. Now, I feel like I need a little bit more definition in the leaves. So I'm gonna go into my leaves a little bit more. Just a little bit. With another brush that's dry and clean. And I'm gonna go over a second pass with my regular green. So this is that middle level green. I'm going over things again. So I'm putting in my middle level green and I'm repeating what I did before. So I'm taking that middle level green to make that kind of pop. So we're building. And again, if you're doing this on white, this isn't going to be an issue for you, but if you're doing it with the black, you definitely don't want the black to be seeping through. That's why I'm doing this again. You want the black to kind of be there, but covered. You'll see why in a minute. Like that, that's looking good. And then I'm going to use my light green again. Same thing. I'm going over my brighter area of my leaf. All of them. Just use your discretion. Cool. Oops. So gotta let this dry a little bit. So while this is drying, we're going on to the next step. Remember I told you that we're gonna be using this aqua. If you have aqua, great. If you don't have aqua, use a color that you have not yet used in your bouquet. So don't use any color that you've already got going in your bouquet. That would probably be my only instruction. You could use white here because we haven't really used white. You could use a beige. You could use a light, you know, really you could use a red if you want. So anything you want, but I'm going with this aqua color. And you'll see why. Now, I'm gonna have to work quickly with this. Before we do it, this is actually a fun thing to do. Use with your non-dominant hand, maybe give yourself, I don't know, like say something to yourself. It's going to be a hidden message that's going to be underneath this. So I'm going to just write myself a little message to myself with my non-dominant hand. Little pep talk for myself. You're doing fine, mine says. Whew. It's always nerve-wracking doing this. So there's my little pep talk. You're doing fine. It's always scary. I'm always scared it's not going to come out. It always does. I don't know what that's about, but it's fine. All right, so I'm going to have to work quickly here, but let me explain what I'm going to do before I actually do it. Using my beveled brush, so this is my angular brush. It's a pretty average size one. I am going to cut in and around my floral. So I want to show you what I'm doing. Just like we do with the watercolors, we are going to leave a little hint of black around this. Okay, a little hint of black. So I'm going around my creation here, and I am cutting in and leaving that little hint of black around my everything, basically. And you'll see what this looks like as you start to. And just be careful when you're coming around your little vase. You want to leave that little bit of same kind of treatment. And when you are coming down to do the table, make sure that you are leaving a little bit of black down there too, or white as the case may be. It looks like a little shadow. Cool. All right, so here's the part where you can keep working, just keep doing your thing. So what I'm going to do next is, and I'm going to show you over here, I like to take the back end of a brush, and while it is still wet, I like to scratch in, scumble in some shapes there. So while it's wet, this is your chance to do it. And it's great to do with your non-dominant hand. You just got to do it kind of quickly. So as I go over to this area of my paper, I'm going to go much faster and in little quadrants probably, because I want it to, I want to get that scumbling in there and not have it dry. So I'm going to go pretty fast here. And I can feel that it's starting to dry a little bit over there. So I'm gonna grab that back of my brush, my other brush, and I'm gonna just get in there, make some little fun marks. And I'll keep going. I can just feel it. It's like it's a feel to the paint, at least my paint. I can feel it starts to like, when I first put it on right now, it's like really smooth and I can move it and then it starts to get stiff. And when it gets to that point, I know I've got to get that on there quickly. Otherwise it won't move around as nicely. At this point in the process, I really need to let things dry sufficiently before I start to add more details and more color to my bouquet. So my recommendation is to let it be, and you will come back to this next as soon as everything is completely dry. All right, once your paint has dried thoroughly, it is time to add some of the special details. The first thing I'm going to do to fill out my bouquet is to add some additional colors. I've got a little bit of a darker purple, and I'm just going to lay in some things now over top the turquoise background to fill things out. And so I'm going to just use some darker purples. It's like a magenta color. I'm letting the brush do the work, and I'm just laying some of that down. And wherever I put it in one area, I'm going to add it into two other areas in a triangular-like fashion. Now I am grabbing my orange paint and some white paint, and I'm going to mix the two together so that I get a lighter shade of orange, and then I'm going to mix that lighter shade of orange with my modeling paste. And the modeling paste, the consistency is sort of like frosting, and so I want to really mix my colors nicely so it's nice and uniform throughout. Now I'm grabbing my molding paste, and I'm going to grab a scoop, you know, a scoopful, and I'm putting it onto my palette right next to everything. And then I'm going to mix this together. So I'm grabbing my white and my orange, and I'm blending this together. This takes a minute. You definitely want to mix it nicely. It kind of should have the consistency of like frosting. Okay, let's see how this looks. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my big orange flower here, my center orange flower, and I'm going to drop some of that molding paste, I guess it is, molding paste. I always call it modeling paste, wrong thing. And I'm going to drop that into my big center flowers here. That's what I'm doing. This one might be a little bit darker, but that is okay too. I'm grabbing that. I'm going to drop a little bit of this in here onto this little orange flower, and a little bit onto this orange flower as well. So what you should be seeing is it actually kind of stands up like, I don't know, fondant or something like that. I mean, it can really stand up. So I'm widening my circles a little. Hopefully you can see that. It's probably a little bit hard to see, but that is what I'm doing. I started kind of in a small little dollop, and then I'm just making it a little wider. So that's one color going on that in the molding paste. That's layer one. I'm going to give that a minute, just a second to kind of cure there. And then you have to sort of decide how many of your flowers do you want to do this with? Is it just certain flowers? Is it lots of flowers? Is it all your flowers? So I'm going to definitely do these. As you can see, I did those oranges there, and I'm going to be adding a secondary color as well. But I'm also think I want to do something with these yellow flowers as well to make those pop a little bit. So I'm going to grab my yellow now. And I'm doing the same exact thing. I'm grabbing a little bit of yellow, doesn't matter exactly what hue. I'm going to grab a little bit of white. And then I'm going to grab a chunk of molding paste here again. And this time I'm going to blend together my yellow and my white. I'm gonna get that all together so it makes a nice light yellow color. And for this, I'm just going to go over top. Let me make sure it's the right consistency and the right color here. That looks good. I'm going to go over top my little yellow flowers. And same thing, I'm kind of like putting it down and then pressing it in. I'm just leaving a little dollop there, just a little dollop. Grab a little bit just of a plain pencil here for myself for a guideline. You do not have to do this. You never have to do this, but I feel like I want some things to kind of maybe like come down a little bit more. So on, so over here, I'm going to kind of make a little line, and I'm maybe going to make a little line over here, and I'm maybe going to make a third little line over here. And what I'm going to do with that is now I'm going back into my molding paste, the yellow, and we'll see if this works. Hopefully this will work. I'm just taking the very tip of my molding paste of my palette knife, the tip, and I'm kind of making some little yellow jaggedy marks here. At least it should be. You got to load it up to do this, but so just some little jaggedy marks. So it's like something drooping down, right? Like a little something, a little branch or something that's kind of drooping down. And then I've got this third one over here. I'm going to add another little bit of a layer on top of this because I'm going to want to swirl it. So I'm going to grab my medium magenta here. Just got a little bit of a medium magenta. Actually, maybe I'll do that. You know what? I take it back. I'm going to use a orangier color. I'm going to use this color because I want to stick with those oranges. I'm going to use my cadmium yellow. And I'm doing the same thing. I want to put in a little bit of molding paste. So cadmium yellow, it's kind of like an orangey color. So this is like a really, that's like an orange. And this one is going to be more of like a yellowy orange. So I'm mixing that with the molding paste as well. And hopefully I can do this properly. So what I want to do, I hope I can model this properly. I am going to drop this on top of my flower that I laid in here. Yeah, that's good. I'm going to drop that onto each little flower, that orange, that second color of, yellowy orange right on the top. You don't want them to blend. You kind of want it to like just drop it there. You don't want it to like swirl. Okay, good. And then I'm going to take the back of a brush and I'm going to swirl that around a little bit. And I'm going to do that in each of those orangey flowers. I'm going to go over one more time. I had those hot pink, what was that called? Just plain magenta. I just want to go over my little round flowers, these little roundies here. I want to give those a second hit of the magenta because last time I didn't get that. So all I'm doing is I'm just going with my paint right over the magenta. You know, I'm sort of avoiding the modeling paste and stuff, but I just want it to have a slightly, I could see a little black underneath it is I guess what I'm getting at. So I want it to just be a little bit fuller. Now I'm going to grab my Posca pens. I have a green, I have a black, I have a white, and I'm going to put a little bit of highlights into the leaves, and I'm going to add some white as well because that sort of makes it look like there's a little baby's breath in the bouquet. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and if you did, I hope that you will click subscribe for future painting tutorials.